Managing attorney from the ACLU of Ohio. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the rest of the panel. This is Sean Young. He's an attorney with the ACLU National Voting Rights Project. Sybil McNabb, who is the president of the NAACP of Ohio. Reverend Dale Snyder, Bethel AME Church, located in Columbus, Ohio. And Carrie Davis, Executive Director, League of Women Voters of Ohio. We'll start with some prepared remarks, then answer any questions you may have for the panel. Afterwards, the panel members will remain available for any one-on-one interviews that you wish. Today, the ACLU of Ohio and ACLU National Voting Rights Project, on behalf of the NAACP of Ohio, the League of Women Voters of Ohio, and several prominent African American churches, including Bethel AME Church, filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, Eastern Division, against Ohio Secretary of State John Husted and Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine. We filed this lawsuit because Secretary Husted and the Ohio legislature have violated federal law and the United States Constitution by eliminating the early voting opportunities used by more than 157,000 Ohioans in the 2012 election. Cutting these opportunities especially impacts tens of thousands of low-income voters, elderly voters, student voters, and other voters who turn to early in-person voting as their best option for casting a ballot. Many of these voters are also African American. This latest attack on early voting is part of a larger pattern of politicians who have restricted access to the ballot instead of expanding it. Defending the right to vote should not be a partisan issue. We are here today to stand up for the rights of all Ohio voters, regardless of their political party, regardless of their income, age, or race. I turn now to Sean Young, ACLU National Voting Rights Project attorney.
We are asking the court to strike down Senate Bill 238, a 2014 law that eliminated the first week of early voting in Ohio. This period is often called Golden Week because it enables voters to register and cast a ballot on the same day. In 2012, 90,000 Ohioans voted during this period. Prior to these cuts, Ohio had provided this week for nearly 7 years with no widespread problems. It should also be noted that allowing voters to register and cast a ballot at the same time isn't something new or unique to Ohio. In fact, 10 other states have taken same-day voter registration a step further by allowing it on Election Day. We're also asking the court to strike down a directive by Secretary Husted that slashed the early voting period even further by eliminating all Sundays, the Monday before Election Day, and all evening voting hours. Secretary Husted claims that this directive is aimed at uniformity, but this uniformity could easily have been achieved by expanding access to the polls instead of cutting it. Together, these legislative and administrative cuts to early voting have eliminated the days and times used by more than 157,000 Ohio voters to cast ballots in the 2012 presidential election. And to put that number in perspective, the 2012 election was decided by fewer than 167,000 votes in Ohio. I'll now turn to Ms. McNabb from the NAACP.
The cuts to early voting are bad for all voters, but they will have a devastating impact on the African American communities. Yet every year, politicians find a new reason to cut them. The early cuts expand access to early voting opportunities, has done wonders to lift voter-empowered voters in our community. Yet every year, the politicians find a reason to cut them. The early cuts to early voting have been bad for all voters, and they have who are more than twice as likely as the white voters to visit the polls early. The justifications change over time. Lately, it seems to be about shamming voters into accepting less by telling them that they have it better than other states. Whatever the latest reason, African American voters are one of the many groups that bear the brunt of their obsession with cutting a popular and effective early voting period. Now, turn to Reverend Dale Snyder.
Greetings. One of the first casualties of these new cuts to early voting has been the Souls to the Polls program organized by many African American churches. The programs transport parishioners directly from the churches to the polls where they can vote early in person on Sunday before the election. In 2012, Secretary Husted tried to eliminate Sunday voting before Election Day from the early voting schedule, but a federal court judge ordered him to restore it. This decision saved Souls to the Polls that year. Apparently, the lessons that politicians learned was not to wait a while and then repeat the same bad behavior. As a result, Souls to the Polls program are again under danger. These programs are not just about convenience. Many voters have difficulties getting away from their jobs to vote during the week hours. Others have transportation issues and mobility issues. Early voting opportunities provide genuine access. The voters served by our programs take their civic duty seriously. They want to go to the polls. They feel great pride when they place their ballot in the box. Giving these voters expanded option increases voter encouragement, contribution to a healthy democracy. How can this be a bad thing?